Hey, welcome to the Citizen Mike Show. My name is Mike Brodinski, and somewhere on that split screen is Christina Tatta. Christina, you're going to be having a lot of meetings with budget season and town council and all that kind of stuff. And I understand you're at a Board of Ed workshop tonight. Yeah.
Yes,
Can you give us just a quick report?
sure. This is the annual meeting where Dr. Menzo, superintendent, releases his the Board of Ed budget to the Board of Ed. So I should say it's actually the superintendent's budget is presented to the Board of Ed. And I listened in on that meeting. The big takeaway is they are, should say Dr. Menzo is requesting a 2.13% increase above what they have this year. He made it a point to mention that that was I believe he said the lowest request ever, or at least in recent history, for the sustained services portion. So they split it into two. They have the sustained services and then their strategic plan. So the sustained services would be a 1.19% increase. You add in that strategic and it brings it to the 2.13%.
Yeah, I guess history indicates that no matter what the request is, the mayor always cuts it a little bit, or at least a little bit, and then the council historically generally has left it alone after the mayor gets done with it. So what's the next step in the process for the Board of Ed? They're going to have more workshops, or what's going on there?
Yeah, so the Board of Ed now has the budget and they'll have a bunch of workshops and meetings over the next few weeks, month, and they will, they decide to cut anything or question anything. That will happen. Oh, I remember last year was a big increase. It was a little more alarming, and they had a big health insurance cost increase. This year, they actually had a decrease in their health insurance costs. I guess a lot of people weren't using the health benefits because of COVID, not going to the doctor, they said. So they actually had a little bit of a decrease there. So that helps a lot because that's a huge line item for them.
Let's change the subject. I was looking at the agenda that's coming out for the next council meeting, and I noticed that you are stirring the pot again. I don't know. A rookie counselor and bringing up all these sensitive topics. So you and Joe Marone have got something on the council agenda to try to get to the bottom of why the town's audit or comprehensive annual financial report it wasn't filed on the usual statutory date of December 31. What's going on? What are you looking for?
Joe and I had spoken about both kind of wondering where the audit was, why we were receiving it late, and so each of us separately requested to the chairman that we have an agenda item on this. So I'm not really sure exactly what Joe is planning on asking, but my basic questions are just, what happened, because we see that a lot of other towns had theirs on time. We talked about last week on the show, we did receive a memo saying that it was the actuarial firm created some sort of a delay possibly in getting some info to the town. So I just want to know, what happened, and is it the actuary's fault? Is this somebody that we hired that we need to maybe look into not hiring again if there was a big flaw? So I just have some general questions as to what's going on, and we still don't have it. I'm hearing mid next week. So
next week, mid next week. So just a quick review. December 31 is the day Wallingford usually releases it, the last business day of the year. And back in the old days, the mayor used to have a little press conference and chat about it. He's abandoned that, but still the audits did appear on the state website on time, December 31 or sooner, but usually it's December 31. But this year they never appeared. The audit never appeared on the website, and we got a memo from the chairman, Vinnie Cervoni, dated January 4. There's a couple sentences I want to read because, as it turns out, in my view, the memo is more wrong than right, more untrue than true, and I'll explain that in a second. But I think the common sense reading of the memo is that if people are concerned about it, look to the actuarial firm, blame them. And I think that's a fair reading of the memo, but something is off here and I want to get into that. So the chairman writes, typically the council would have received the town's annual audit report on New Year's Eve. I've just found out from the mayor's office that the audit was not completed in time because the auditors did not receive the actuarial report until Christmas Eve. Therefore, the auditor applied for an extension of the statutory deadline. The extension was granted within 30 days. So it sounds like from the reading the memo that an extension was requested around Christmas time, but that is not true. The extension was requested in November, around November 25. So around November 25, the town knew that it requested an extension. But it wasn't just one actuarial firm. The town reported that there were two. So the town said that they wanted an extension to mid-December, and they said the third-party information was not received. But because there's two actuarial firms now, one the healthcare actuary and one the pension actuary, I begin to wonder, well, could both of those actuarial firms have kind of blown the deadline? Is that a coincidence when they made the deadline for all the other towns? Or was something going on with the town processes that the town didn't get information to both actuaries when the town maybe could have or should have? And that resulted in maybe both actuaries not being able to complete their work. So I think, yeah, you raised the right question. What is the reason why the actuaries weren't able to do that? And maybe we shouldn't, jump to the conclusion that it was the actuary's fault, because maybe the town, the answer lies closer to home. Your thoughts on my thoughts?
Well, the big thing that's jumps out at me is your November 25th date, because this is, you're the first person saying that. So everything I had read said it was around Christmas Eve, and which to me seemed kind of, late in the game anyway, because, December 31st is supposed to be out there. So the fact that now you're saying it was November 25th, that's new. That's news.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The signatures on their request for an extension, the mayor signed it, the request for an extension on November 24. And the auditor signed it on November 25, and I just assume electronically, that it was filed. So in the middle of November, the end of November, they knew they weren't going to make 12/31, but they did anticipate mid-December, and now we're in mid-January, and maybe you'd think they'd been able to clean this up before now. And it's kind of disappointing because you and I were kind of chomping at the bit to discuss the financial results, but we're gonna have to, wait on that.
Well, in the Board of Ed budget, was released tonight. So that was my concern, a few weeks ago when we didn't have it, is that there's budgets being worked on, and, internally they probably know where they land, but Wallingford always uses the audit as the final say so. We typically don't get year-end numbers besides the monthly reports until the audit comes out. So now you have, the Board of Ed, it's already, from the superintendent's office, from central office, they're already done. So how do you form a budget when you don't know where you land? And so then I wonder, was the Board of Ed budget maybe the increase so low because there is a surplus there? I don't know. It's all speculation, but that's the problem now. We don't know. So
yeah, and this conversation gives me another chance to reiterate one of the premises of the Citizen Mike Show. For like the last 11 years, I've been sticking to this and repeating it at least 4 or 5 times a year. And that is, don't give, or we shouldn't give undue deference to the official version, especially when it just doesn't sound right. And here we had the official version that didn't receive the actuarial report until Christmas Eve. Therefore, the auditor applied for an extension, but actually the extension was a month before. And it wasn't just one actuary, it was two actuaries, creating, in my mind, at least, an inference that maybe the town, had some role in creating this delay. Let's change the subject a little bit. And I want to talk about Simpson Court again, because since we talked about it last week, there's been a lot of water over the dam, I guess is the expression. This matter has popped up on the agenda again, but I want to bring viewers just up to speed with a very, very quick synopsis as to what's going on.
Okay.
And so for those viewers that didn't watch the show last week, and you're listening to this for the first time, you say, what are you talking about, Simpson Court? You know, what's going on? Well, there's a very serious and substantial discussion bordering on heated at the last council meeting, and consequential, extremely consequential, because it had to do with the future of Simpson Court and potentially whether or not some parking lots in the Wooding Kaplan area were going to get paved, and the Record Journal never reported it. I want to stop here, take a breath, and ask you, hey, were you expecting the Record Journal to report it? Just what were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was a big deal, especially because there was a referendum on it, 10 years ago. It's kind of, I thought it was a big deal. And I knew it wouldn't be the next day because the meeting went until almost midnight. So I knew it was past the deadline. And then it wasn't in the next day. So then I thought, well, maybe it's going to be in Sunday. It'll be a big feature. And then it wasn't there Sunday. So I don't know. I don't know if they're waiting for the next agenda because they knew it would be on it again. I was surprised it wasn't covered yet.
There are a lot of angles to this that would warrant a front page story above the fold. I mean, a lot of angles to this. One, of course, that it's Simpson Court, and as you say, the town had a referendum on this in 2011, and here we go again.
Yep.
The reason why this could be a front page story above the fold is there seemed to be a sharply divided council. The third reason is the mayor was obviously stonewalling the council and not agreeing to provide the information that the council mainly you, but others followed suit after you sort of cracked the egg a little bit. The mayor refused to or resisted giving information that the council reasonably needed to complete its business, which was giving due consideration to whether or not 3 parking areas should be repaved. You requested, and other councilors expressed, the same sentiment. Hey, let's know what these 3 areas cost.
Yes. Give
us the cost. We'll vote on them. Majority rules, and so before we play the little clip that we have, the meeting started off, or that agenda item started off when Vice Chair Tom Laffin, as he always does, made a motion to open up the subject matter, and he made a motion to appropriate $375,000 for the paving or work on these 3 parking lot areas, Simpson Court and 2 areas in the Wooding Kaplan area. And it was not clear from the backup where the money was coming from. Hopefully that'll be fleshed out, at the next council meeting. But then you jump in and upset all of Tom Laffin's plans, Cervone's plans for having a quick meeting and having a smooth vote. And certainly, the mayor, who maybe wasn't anticipating, I don't know, maybe he was, but you made a motion to divide the question into component parts. And those component parts were, of course, the 3 individual locations or properties. And then a debate raged for 1.5 to 2 hours. something like that. Just a little more background. The estimates to do this is not 375,000.
No.
There's sitting already in the bank, I'll call it, not needing a new appropriation is an additional 47,800. So if the whole concept was packaged into one initiative, it'd be about $423,000. I'm going to take a breath and turn this over to you. So you made this motion to divide, and you mentioned the town referendum as one of the reasons.
Yes.
What was your concern there?
Well, my concern there is that, again, we don't know what each individual lot costs. We were just given a lump sum to do all of these lots. And a referendum in Wallingford is a big deal. That's a big effort to even get it to go to referendum. And it was, I think if something that was ever a referendum that was defeated in the referendum too, that the voters said, we don't want to do this. And now it comes back again. How do you make a decision on that without knowing the cost? And so that was a big part of my concern, is that, there's an argument there that, well, maybe it's not the same as a referendum because now it costs less because we cut out some lighting and we did some different things, and it's much, less expensive this time. So maybe it's okay. But we don't know what the cost is. So how do we make an educated decision without knowing the cost?
Yeah, that was one of your reasons for dividing the question. Of course, tonight we're going to have the big reveal on this show. We kind of know what the costs are, and we'll tell that story in just a minute. But I want to go back to the referendum because I think that issue needs to be addressed fairly by the administration. The mover of the motion was Tom Laffin. I think Chris Shortell may have seconded, but the proponents of the motion need to answer that question as to, why doesn't the referendum block this initiative? The lease proposal on the agenda is worded quite similarly, almost word for word, as the question on the referendum in 2011. I mean, so it's an obvious question. What role does the referendum play in the voice of the voters? And back in 2011, how should that be weighted in this, in this decision? So going back 2011, there were, as I remember, my notes say, I don't remember a thing, but about 6,888 total votes in that referendum on the leases. 2,768 said, yup, let's do it. Let's go into these leases for 30 years for the property in back of Simpson Court so we can reconstruct a parking lot back there. The estimated cost at that time, although this wasn't the referendum question, but the estimated cost is $500,000, give or take. But 4,120 said no. So 2,768 said, yes, let's do the leases, but 4,120 said, no, let's not do the leases. And of course, it was defeated, and it kind of brings us up to now.
And that's a 60-40 split in, as you know, in elections or in polling. That's a big, that's a 10%, window there is that's big in political.
That's a landslide. In
this
day and age. So we've got this clip. Are there any background facts that I didn't lay out there before we play that clip?
No, I think you covered it well.
All right, let's see what we got here.
Well, I think the motion needs clarification. How would you divide the question? That is not clear to me from your presentation.
Sure. It would propose we divide it into separate properties. So we would need to have one motion with a corresponding dollar amount for the Simpson lot, and another motion with a corresponding dollar amount for the Wallace lots. And
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Bill Dickinson, Mayor. We have dealt with the project that is Simpson Court parking area in the past. There were criticisms that we weren't paving across the street. This is one project. It's meant to provide good parking, safe parking for both sides of Main Street. They're all lots that support businesses in that area. So whether you're parking in the Wooding Kapling area or you're parking on the Simpson Court area, you can easily make it to any of the businesses in that area. One project. At this point, administratively, we're either going to do this correctly and do all projects, or we're doing none. This has been argued up and down 14 ways to Sunday forever. Yes, the Simpson Court area is owned by 4 owners who are willing to enter leases. Once they enter the lease, it is public property for a 25-year term. That area has been a public parking area since, I believe, 1961. So we need to deal with holistically. The parking in that area is used by everyone to get to any of the areas proximate to them. They're mutually supportive. One project.
If the lease doesn't go through, all this work stops. Why should Wallace Avenue stop if we don't get into a lease with Simpson Court?
What was to be budgeted for Simpson Court and what was to be budgeted for the whole of the Wallace project. And I don't know if we got an answer to your question.
This can't be bifurcated. It's one project. One project. We're either going to do this right, recognizing all of the public parking that has been used since 1961, other than one piece that was separated out, or we'll have to reconfigure everything. We're wasting a lot of time tonight because it's not going to go piecemeal. If I can help on this, Bill Dickinson, Mayor. If all of the owners have indicated they're in agreement, we'll sign the leases. It's a question of whether the town approves the leases. If they're all approving and allows us to create the drainage that is necessary for the parking lot to work properly, the whole project goes forward. If we're not going to renew the leases or approve the new leases, then that would be the end of the project, period. So they're intertwined in the sense that without the approval of the leases, there is no project at Simpson Court, which means that at that point, administratively, we're not going to move forward with any of the project.
And to strong arm the discussion around, we need to do the right thing for the parking, kind of bothers me. This is wrong.
I guess I'm not necessarily against this project in part or in whole. However, I do have concerns that I think that it's a completely legitimate question to ask what the cost of each part of the project is. And I think if we don't have the answers to that tonight, then we shouldn't vote on it tonight at all. And let's get those answers and then we can have a proper discussion about this. I'd also like to reiterate Councilor Zandri's point, because it's interesting to me that the question was asked about bifurcating this issue, and the response that we got from the administration and from the council chair was pretty forceful. So that makes me more uncomfortable than any part of the project.
We have genuine concerns, our questions, our curiosities about the cost. And counselors are uncomfortable with signing a lease where we're paying basically for the parking lot and not knowing what that cost is. So I motion that we postpone this discussion and this motion until the next council meeting, when the administration can come back with engineering and public works to give us some of those costs.
I'll second that.
So that was Chris Shortell that seconded the motion to postpone. I should have mentioned to viewers before we started that clip that obviously this is a collage
Yeah.
of different bits and pieces of the discussion. The discussion took about an hour and a half, I don't know, an hour and a half to 2 hours.
You did a lot of editing.
Yeah, and I put that into about 5 minutes. So there's obviously a lot of good comments that I could not include in the interest of time. But the back and forth was, as soon as you made, seems to me, as soon as you made the motion to divide and you wanted separate costs for the different parking areas, the mayor and I think Chairman Cervoni took that as a threat to the concept of redoing Simpson Court. And so they began to circle the wagons, and the way the mayor did it was that he strenuously resisted providing to the council the cost of each project separately. So you made this motion to divide. Council liked it, 6-3. Your motion passed. But the way the meeting ended, well, how did that meeting end? Let me just go over to you. So there was more after Tom Laffin made that particular motion, more happened, and then bring us up to today.
Yeah, so there were 2 separate agenda items. One was to appropriate the money. The other was to sign the leases. and that is just the Simpson lot, obviously, the leases, because we own the Woody and Kaplan lots. You ended that clip with Counselor Laffin making a motion to postpone this until we have the costs. That then somehow turned into, and I don't recall if it was the same motion or the next, into a motion to get the maintenance costs. And then there was kind of another back and forth about that, because what I was looking for was not the maintenance costs. I was looking for the cost of the actual lots. So to bring us to today, we left the meeting. I thought it was very clear at the end of the meeting what we were looking for, which was the cost of each individual lot. We did not receive that as of yet. We did get our council agenda today, and the maintenance costs were in our backup materials.
What we found out later in the day was that Craig Fishbein was able somehow to obtain this breakout of costs of installing the parking lots on these three separate projects.
Mhm.
How Craig did it and, the circumstances, I don't have any comment on that, but he was able to get those costs that you were looking for, and he emailed the material that he obtained to all the counselors.
Mm.
And then a little while later, just the way I got it, it might have been like an hour later, the mayor sent substantially the same materials to all the counselors too. I don't believe in coincidences. The fact that Craig Fishbein sent the needed material to the counselors and may have gotten back to the mayor, and that put him under some pressure. We don't want this official information coming through Craig. And I think because of what Craig did, now the mayor distributed basically the same information to the counselors, but he didn't distribute all of it. The mayor, Craig distributed more. But we find out from these materials, and this is my best interpretation of what these mean, is that, again, based on the document I reviewed, it appears that if Simpson Court reconstruction goes to an outside contractor, I'm rounding numbers now, it would cost about $300,000. The cost of the other two parking lots, the Wallace Avenue West is a rounded numbers about 60,000, and Wallace Avenue East about 64,000. So we have the breakout. If you want to do the parking lot inside the Wood and Kaplan area, Wallace Avenue East and West, about 120, 125,000. Simpson Court is a standalone, if put to outside contractors, about $300,150. Okay, your thoughts on that so far?
I mean, I guess it makes sense if these are right. I would love to get, not that I see what Craig provided to us, but I would love to have an official, I would love for somebody at town hall to confirm this, because, again, at this point, it's really not an official statement. It's just info that, was sent to us by another counselor.
Well, I think it's more than that. I think this is a public record maintained by the engineering department and the Department of Public Works. So I think these are business records, and the fact that the mayor provided the exact same document from the engineering department confirms that is the cost. That's the $300,000. The other came from the engineering department, I gather, I assume. I'm not sure, but so there we go. Assuming arguendo, assume for the purposes of this argument that Simpson Court costs $300,000 to reconstruct, and that does not include the annual maintenance cost, that's the installation cost. Assuming Simpson Court costs $300,000, we know what the referendum was. Annual maintenance cost, $3,400. I think you said going up to maybe
$5,500.
$5,500. Where do you stand on this? Do you know?
I want to hear more. I don't have a definitive decision as of now. I've been talking to a lot of people with, with with kind of connections to this and strong opinions about it. And I'm trying to see where it falls. But my general philosophy is I do not like government paying for private, private businesses or private citizens because, what about the guy next door? Like, what does he get his parking lot paved? And I think there's an argument from EDC, which is valid, that they, we want this to look nice, and this is what we have to do to get our uptown to look nice. This looks crummy, and this is what we have to do. And I understand that, and it makes sense. It would look nicer, there's no doubt. But I think there are a lot of things in town that we could make look a lot nicer, and that I don't know what that means that we go and, pay for all those private.
Yeah, so I didn't make clear, and I should have emphasized this a little bit more, that if the town goes in and spends $300,000 to rebuild the Simpson Court parking lot, and then continues on to pay the annual maintenance, which is like snow plowing and patching and repairing and things like that, the town would get in return a 25-year lease that would lock in, guarantee, ensure public parking for 25 years. So it's not like we invest $300,000 in the initial installation and then an owner could kick us out. We have a lease to protect the access.
Yes.
And that's an important thing to emphasize, because that's what whole thing is based on, and that's what you were asked to vote on, those leases. There are 4 individual leases, each for 25 years. I think, I'm looking forward to the next council meeting, see how that unfolds. Have you counted the votes? Have you got a sense, your pulse on the heartbeat of the council here?
I haven't at all. I've been very busy just trying to sort everything out for myself. So I really haven't, I don't know where it's gonna, to land. But I did want to mention too, another thing I'm worried about is that this could potentially become a money pit. So they're not just repaving that Simpson lot. They're ripping it up, redoing drainage. It's those concrete planters are there coming out. So I'm also a little bit afraid that maybe the numbers that we have now are best case scenario. And then once you get in there, things maybe get a little bit worse. And then what do we do? So, that's something I want to ask about too.
Yeah, fair point. And another thing that I hope that little video clip spoke for itself, but maybe it didn't. But the mayor's position is that if the leases are voted down, for all the reasons that you have discussed, the referendum and the principle of public money going to improve private property, even though there is a 25-year lease, the mayor's position is a bit of a threat that if the leases are not approved, he said he will not pave the interior of the Wood and Kaplan property, Wallace East and Wallace Left. It's sort of a, if that's how you want it, council, then I'm not gonna approve the paving of the other parking areas. Maybe there's some concern that the council might be blamed for not paving the interior of the Wood and Kaplan space if they vote down the leases, but I would just suggest that that's the mayor's decision, not yours. He gave an ultimatum and that ought to be rejected, and the council shouldn't submit to those sort of ultimatums. And if the mayor wants to, persist in that sort of my way or the highway thinking, then let him. But it's not a good way to manage the town, and the council has its proper legitimate role in voting on these projects. You ready to change the subject a little bit, or did you have a final thought? Looks like you're ready to get out of this subject.
No, I'm undecided. I still have. Now, in a perfect world, if I had my way, and I know these leases have been worked on for so long, but I would rather they pave the lots and then we enter into a lease where we just pay for it. If we decide that there's a need for that public parking, because I'm concerned about us getting involved in this big project on private property. So I think I just wanted to clarify, that's kind of.
Yeah, but that's not the deal on the table. I mean, I don't think Wallingford got a real good deal on this at all. Nevertheless, that's the deal.
Right.
So is it bad enough to kill, or just barely sweet enough to approve? I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk about another piece of Wallingford real estate. This sort of the gift that keeps on giving. And the reason for this segment of the show is that 2 things appeared in the paper since you and I last talked. And one was an article that reported that Mayor Dickinson, this has to do with the train station right down in the lower center of town. And the question always is, what do we do with that train station? It's come up forever. Currently, the Board of Ed has adult education programming going on in the old train station. But everyone knows as you drive by, it's really cute and quaint and pretty and kind of centrally located, high visibility area. And so people have aspirations, you know, boy, we could make that into an Eiffel Tower and people will come from internationally to see our old train station. There's my view, there's plenty of old train stations around. I mean, I don't see the glamour in it, but you do. We'll get to that in a sec. But anyway, back to this article by Lauren Takoris. Just quickly, she said that Mayor Dickinson spoke to Dr. Menzo, the superintendent of schools, and asked for the impact on the education system on adult ed if the train station was repurposed for some other use, like a commercial use. I think Chris Shortell wanted a pizza restaurant or something like that. I don't know what he was talking about. But in any event, the adult ed director, Sashi Govin, is, you know, held ground and said, this is the spot we want. It's in the middle of town. You know, bus service is important. The central location is important. And so it didn't seem that the Board of Ed or Adult Ed was going to be easily persuadable to move out voluntarily. So people, economic development types say, oh, here's our lovely train station, have your way with it. I think they were gonna, you know, kind of fight and hold on. And Mayor Dickinson seemed to be on their side. Well, first of all, the head of Adult Ed said that no town or school district officials had been contacted before this article went in the paper last week. No one had contacted her about moving out. So this is new stuff to Adult Ed. What? Now you want us to move out? You know, I mean, this is the first time we've been hearing about it. Then there's a paragraph in the article, which is more editorial than fact reporting. It says, changing the station's use from education to business could spark investment and eventual patronage of the lower downtown, a longtime goal of the Economic Development Commission. That's reported as a fact, but it's not. That is wild speculation and maybe an editorial comment, but it doesn't belong in a hard news story. But anyway, that's the aspiration. All we got to do is get a terrific use, you know, in the old train station, and magic will happen, or UFOs will land or something. I don't know. But the mayor, you know, came back and said, you know, if we become a lessor, if we rent this out, I don't think people are talking about selling it. I think they're talking about leasing it out. Yeah. Then the mayor says, yeah, but there's costs involved. We'd have to put in money to bring it up to code and the cost of renovation. And the mayor said, if the costs are way out of bounds of what is typical for that size structure and the type of business in it, that would make it unlikely that it would be feasible, Dickinson said. In Dickinson speak, he's against it. Did you read that article the same way, or were you more optimistic?
I thought you were gonna say, did you read it? I read it. I didn't read it that way.
Okay.
But you know, now that you say it, it didn't sound.
It didn't sound as fatal as I made it out to be. All right.
I was a little hopeful. Maybe
Well,
not more.
then what happens next is an editorial in the Record Journal, and they sort of rehash the facts as we sort of generally described. And the Record Journal editorial board said that they endorsed the Dickinson slow and steady approach to the issue. And that you and I, or you know, from our conversation off camera, I said, who are you kidding, slow and steady? It's never started. How could it be slow? There's never been a process initiated. Mayor Dickinson has never talked to Sal Menzo about this, at least on the record. Adult Ed knows nothing about this. Don't say it's slow and steady. It's been one phone call. And you know, this could take years and years and years and years. Your thoughts on my commentary there?
Yeah, no, that I definitely agree with. You know, I feel like normal time in Wallingford is slow. So to say something is slow, I mean, that's just, I have no idea when that would happen. But yeah, I agree with you. It's been coming up a lot in conversation. And I actually spoke to the EDC about this, or a couple, I talked to two of the EDC members about this. Because that's something I really kind of wanted to, see us do something with. And I think our first conversation was pre-COVID, and I was, brand new and really excited and thought maybe within my term of 2 years, something would happen. And I'm getting a little, I guess I'm learning, but
You're gonna
I don't
change.
think anything's happening in this term, but I would love for it to. I think it's a great spot, and it's a great spot for adult ed because it's centrally located. But Board of Ed, I think the argument from Board of Ed against it, Dr. Menzo said, well, we don't have anywhere in the schools we can put adult ed, and that's not centrally located, and a lot of these students use public transportation. But Board of Ed has leased out, it doesn't need to be something we own. I mean, they leased out central office, over on South Turnpike Road, I think. And they used to lease the building right in the center of town. That's right, across from the old train station. So I think if we wanted to, we could, fairly easily find somewhere to put adult ed, whether, we lease it or it's property we already own. So I don't see that as a huge issue. But again,
Well, so where do you go from here? I noted in your op-ed that you put into the Record Journal, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was entitled "Your First Year on the Council," sort of a look back and sort of reflecting on how this has gone for you so far. You said that property could be the gem, strong words, the gem of the downtown area. I'm just reading. So you have this gem sitting down there, you're on the council, you saw what the mayor said, oh, it's gonna cost money to renovate that. Adult Ed said, we ain't moving voluntarily. I mean, I'm obviously paraphrasing and putting an editorial edge on it. So what do you do next? What's your next? What do you do?
well, I've been kind of tied up with this parking lot issue, but as I did realize, or was reminded, that the council can, I'm reading from the charter now. The council shall have the power to take, purchase, hold, condemn, lease, sell, and convey such real and personal property as the purposes of the town may require. So the council could initiate this.
Well, wait a minute. First of all, it's not fair fighting for a rookie counselor to be reading the charter. It's not right. It's just not right. I mean,
Well, I was on the charter commission, so.
all right, go ahead. Finish up your thought. So we're going to go with that.
Well, and again, I haven't really thought this out. I'm just kind of, speaking here, but we could. I mean, I guess somebody could put it on as a council agenda item and see where it goes.
An idea for it. I wouldn't have asked the question if I didn't have an idea for you.
Yeah, so that could be one way to do it.
Yeah.
I think EDC is very interested in this. So now that it's maybe come about, I would, I'd probably want to talk to them and see what they're doing first. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got the perfect political cover for you. And it comes from the Plan of Conservation and Development. And on page 45, it says, this is the 2016 version of the Plan of Conservation and Development. Convene a committee to recommend the best use of historic rail station that encourages community use and visibility through year-round frequent activity. This may include continuing and supplementing current Board of Ed uses. And who's supposed to take the lead on this? The town council. How important is it? High. They rated, the most urgent. How soon? Short. This is 2016. Okay. So they say convene a commission that is within the council's jurisdiction. It could do it at the next, the next council meeting. But keep in mind, Citizen Mike's 4 basic principles of organizational behavior. Number 3 is the best way to kill an idea is send it to committee. So beware of what you do.
agreed.
But I read your op-ed and I think that was well done. Then I read these 2 other pieces in the Record Journal, the hard news story and the editorial, and I said, oh, I'm gonna ask Christina. So my prediction is 15 years from now, we'll be in the exact same spot. You want to bet against me?
Can I hope against you? I don't know if I'd bet against that.
All right. What do you say we call it quits? We've covered a lot of ground. Thanks for coming on the show, and I want to thank our viewers for coming on the Citizen Mike Show. We do appreciate it. Try to get these shows up now. It's going to be 3 times a month. In the middle of the week, it'll be up on YouTube, WPAA. We thank them for putting the Citizen Mike Show on its channel on Thursdays, Fridays, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesday at 9 p.m. Good night, everybody. Good night, Christina. See you next time. Bye-bye.